welcome back to my channel. This is Sharon from Mad Paper Crush, and today I'm taking part in a challenge called Out with a Bang, the last days of summer collaboration. And this is with Mandy from Sunflower Indoors and Julie from Julie's Papercraft, and it's in conjunction with the Junk Journals Ideas and Inspiration Facebook page that they have created and started. So all throughout August, you can visit a bunch of different artists to see projects that they've created based on prompts that we were given. And today I'm going to be doing these tags made from a masterboard, and my prompt is summer splatters. So I hope that you'll join me as we go along and make these tags and have a whole lot of fun as the summer goes out with a bang. So come along, let's get started. All right, so the key to a masterboard is layers. So we are going to be putting a lot of layers onto a base. And I like to use old scrapbook papers as a base. So I have a lot of just 12 by 12 scrapbook papers that I never used or I don't really care for. And so these are a perfect base because when you make a masterboard and you're, looking to be able to use it for cohesive pieces of ephemera and things like that, 12 by 12 is a nice size because you can cut things down to, for example, if you're going to make tags, you could cut things down to 3 by 6, and then you could have, 4 tags going across here and 4 tags going across here. Since this is 12, you have the length. You could cut them even smaller. You could do 3 by 3 squares, 4 by 4 squares, even 6 by 6 if you wanted to use that for something, maybe even a cover of a journal or something like that. So that's why I like 12 by 12, but this certainly isn't, what you have to do. So you can use any other scrap papers that you have if you want to make your masterboard on that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over because this is just way too busy for me to deal with right now. So I like to flip it over. Now, I'm going to start kind of with the end in mind, meaning that I'm just going to make a couple of little marks just in the beginning. They're going to get covered up, but I'm just going to use them kind of as a guide for what I'm doing on for my tags, because I am going to make tags from this. Now, I just measured, and it is actually like 1/4 of an inch over because this does have a perforated line on there. So I want to just cut that off. So let me get this cut off. So we're down to 12 by 12, and that makes it a little easier for me to cut things apart. So I'm just going to line things up a little and just make a couple of pencil marks. And like I said, these are going to be covered up, but it'll just help me in the beginning kind of keep my eyes on, making sure I get things where I want them. So that I do have sort of a matching set of things. So I'm going to put that on this line, and then I'm going to make 3 by 6 tags. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So I have a 3-inch line here, and then another one. 1, 2, 3 is right here. And I could go even bigger. I mean, these tags are going to be not small, but I think most of the time when I make them, I do them 3.5, but 3.5 doesn't really go into 12 well. So, and like I said, you can do this any way that you want to do it. 1, 2, 3. This is just what I'm doing for today. And I'm going to, after we get this done, so, okay, so now I have that, and let me do my 6 inches up here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, that's not right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here we go. Okay, so this is my middle line. So you can see I have my 8 tags that I'm going to end up with when we get this done. Okay, so now I have that ready to go, and then I'm going to start going through what I'm going to put down for my layers. So my prompt is summer splatters for the collaboration. And so I'm thinking about some summer colors that I want to get down here first. So I'm thinking browns, and I love this old piece of paper that's kind of this sort of a, I don't know, it's yellow, but it's kind of orange. I don't know. I love that. It looks like a summer color to me. And then I have some old ledger paper, and this is just plain brown paper, but I thought that would be a nice sort of fall base since we're the end of summer is going out with a bang. I thought this would be a nice starter set of colors for me. And obviously when we get going, we're going to put more things on. Now, I will just tell you, this is kind of how I'm going to do it. So a lot of these papers will get covered up. And when I think about which ones I want the least covered up, obviously I have to put them on the top. So things that I don't mind so much getting covered up, I'm going to put on the first layers, and then, the papers that I want to see more, I'm going to put on the top. Now what I'm going to do with each of these, and I have a whole bunch of these ledger papers here. I'm just going to start with one at a time when I'm ready to put them down, and just kind of tear them into irregular shapes. And so for example, I might not mind if, something gets torn out of here and it gets covered up, but I might want to make sure that number 378 is somewhere on the top. So as I tear through things, I am going to be looking at what I put down. But my very first layer is going to be this brown paper, because obviously I don't mind if it gets covered up, and I might, want it to be. I want little pieces of this to be sticking out, but I don't want it to be, all over the place. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, ooh, sorry, that was really loud for you. I'm going to take this piece of paper, and I am actually going to crumble it up to give it some nice texture. And then I'm going to tear it into pieces. And I'm just going to use my glue stick here to glue everything down. I am going to try to be sure I glue things pretty well. I don't want things, sticking up and coming off of my Masterboard here. But I'm just going to, and I want these to kind of be irregular. That's just how I'm going to do it. And of course, you could do a Masterboard where your pieces of things were very regular. That would kind of be a fun look too. But you can see as we go through these layers, we're going to have the cohesiveness of each of the papers being on all of the end pieces of ephemera, which is what I love. Okay, so I have a bunch of pieces here to start with. I'm gonna grab my glue stick here, and this is getting pretty old, but I think it's gonna be okay. And I'm not gonna worry about gluing over the edge of the lines right on this paper, because I'm going to be gluing things down onto it. So I'm just going to kind of start putting things around. And what I probably will do, actually maybe I will do for this one, is the edges, I'm kind of going to go over the edge, and I'll cut those off at the end, or even just turn them over, because I don't want any of the white showing. So you could use some distress ink around if you wanted to do that. It's entirely up to you how you would want to do that. So you can see there's just a little bit of texture once I, glue things down, but still enough that I like it. So that's where we're going. And so you can see I'm just going to continue. Now this one I'm going to put right up to the edge on the left side, but I'm going to go over the edge on the bottom so that it's covering the bottom edge there. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with this. And I'm not going to fill it up. I am going to leave some white spaces around, because we'll be filling in with some of these other layers. So I'm just going to keep going and get all these down on the paper. Okay, layer one is done. And you can see one thing that I didn't mention is as I'm trying to start, I want to be sure that my papers sort of cross over those lines that I made, because that's the other thing that helps a Masterboard end up being cohesive when you cut it apart, is that, you have things that are sort of flowing from each piece once you cut it apart to the next. So I like to try to be sure I am covering up, the lines so that things are actually crossing over onto either side. And I do have some extra pieces here that I'm just going to hang on to in case I need them for later. But now we're going to start with our next layer. And I think I'm going to go into my music pages next. Because while I love music music pages and the way the notes look and things like that, I'm not worried about them getting covered up a little bit later on, you know, and they won't totally be covered up, but some of it might get covered up, and I don't mind if that's the case. And then after that, now I'm just, like I said, we're going to be doing layers. So I'm going to do the music next. And then I think I'm probably going to do these two sort of together, because these are the two that I kind of want to be on top of everything, even though we're going to be adding, you know, even more to this. But I'm going to do these together to kind of, you know, just figure out where things go. So we'll come back when I get to that part. But I'm going to be doing the same thing with my music paper. I'm just going to be tearing pieces off of it. And for this one too, you know, if I decide to put something somewhere, I'm going to go over the edge, because I want to be sure that none of the white from this original paper is showing. So you'll kind of see me, you know, do that as I go too, to make sure, you know, I'm not having any of that white show in the end. So as you go for the music papers here, so let me just, I'm going to kind of do this one by, I'm going to try not to go all the way to the edge so it's not so sticky, and I'll just cut this one off later. But I'm going to put this down, and you can see I'm overlapping a little bit of my brown paper too, because that's going to help be sure I'm covering up some of the white from the original page. So, oops, and it's getting kind of sticky, so I might need to move to another substrate to glue on. So most of the time I have a book somewhere, who knows where I put it, but I'm going to try and find my little glue book so that I'm not ending up tearing all this apart here. As you can see, this page, these music pages are pretty delicate, so I think I'm going to tear this little piece off as it is, and we will put this one, I did go up to the edge on this one, so I think I can go to the edge here, just as long as I cover up the edge. And if I do have some white sticking out at the end, I'll probably just use some distress ink to cover it up and make sure that's all not working. But I'm going to keep going with this. I am going to go find my little glue book so that I'm not ending up with little pieces all over. I'm going to kind of let this glue dry on here a little bit. Okay, we're moving on to the next layer, and I said I was going to kind of do these two together, but because I have some white spots and things, I think I'm going to start with this one, even though I might come in and put some of the other ones on. So I might actually tear off some of these and sort of see how they fit in before I just start putting them down. Like for this, I just kind of, just put things wherever I thought maybe they looked good or made sense. But I think for once I get to this layer, especially since I have, some things that I want to show, I might do it a little bit different. So like for example, like I love this 378, and I don't know if it'll even show, once I get to the end of, making the tags. But I'm going to try and put it in a place where it will maybe end up showing. So like, for example, I might put that up there because that might end up showing, as we finish up the tags. I don't know. And then some of these other ones, like I want to start looking to be sure I'm covering up, the white space as best as I can. So as I go through this, I may also be working to cut papers that, sort of fit certain shapes, or tear papers just to fit certain shapes. But once again, I'm still not being terribly, particular. Right, I think that looks pretty good, all those things. So hopefully I can pick them all out, figure out where they was just the papers I put down, but I think I can recognize them since they're my ledger papers here. And I might even, start putting things a little bit to the side And once again, since I put some glue on this side, I'm gonna fold that over. So that wasn't exactly where I wanted it, but that's the great thing about a Masterboard. As you go, you'll notice that things start to just start to work out. And we could always go back with some of those other papers in other layers that we didn't, you know, finish up before. So let me see if I can kind of go in order here. And this paper is a little bit heavier, so I'm going to try to be sure I'm using as much glue as I can. So as you can see, like I'm starting to cover up some of the edges of this pretty brown paper. So I might come back in with some of those scraps that I had left over and put some more of those on top again. Just so that I might get to see some of those little edges because I like them. I'm all about the torn and tattered for sure. Actually, maybe we'll put this one over a little too, since I have some space here. I think I have this one left. I think everything else is glued down. And all right, just kind of check and be sure I glued everything down. All right, so now let's come in with my yellow piece. And that one might be a fun one to use too. And you could definitely do this, you know, you don't have to put it on right side up even. And since I have this little hole there, that might be fun to put in a place where it is, you know, with, I have some brown coming through there or something like that. Actually, yeah, that might be fun right there. Let's do it. This paper's getting a little sticky, so I'm gonna turn this over again. Okay, whoa. Whoops, and now I'm ripping it. Look at that. Ripped it right off of there. That's typical for me. Okay. So now we're going to get some of this out with a bang yellow in there. I'm calling it yellow, even though that's really not what color this is, I don't think. And let's see. And this is kind of fun too, this this yellow, because you can kind of see some of the underlying papers underneath as well, and I like that. All right, let's see, we got a tall one here. Could we do that somewhere? No. I'm gonna try and see if I can find something to mostly cover up this hole. That one works pretty good. That underneath. Okay. All right, I'm just going to keep going here. Okay, I've got a bunch of the yellow on here, and I love the way it's looking so far. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to some of my other layers and sort of fill in. So I still have several spots that are just, you know, white from the original background. And so I'm going to go fill in some of them. I don't know if I'm going to get all of them because I have some other things that I'm going to put on top, but I'm going to start with some of them because I would rather more of them be filled in than not. So I'm just going to be looking for, you know, like here's a space that maybe could use some music paper, you know. I mean, that's kind of what we're, and I'm going to be looking now too to just kind of be sure I'm getting the right, you know, size in here. And so I cut this one, or I tore this one down, you know, enough that it's going over this whole spot, but you can see I'm also going to be able to still see that nice little received there, even though, you know, who knows how much of this will get covered up when we get to the point of actually decorating everything. But now that white spot is gone, which is good, and I'm going to kind of do that same thing. So as I look around here, like this is a very big spot, but I think it might be nicely covered with some brown, or even maybe right across here with some brown. Let me see if I can tear this in a way that I can have most of the things showing here. Of course, I'm not getting that quite right because of this little dip here, but that, you know what, maybe I could fill that in just with some distress ink. So that's what we're going to go with there. Sometimes I have to say to myself, this does not need to be perfect, because in the end, it will be perfect just the way I want it. That's how I roll sometimes. Okay, let me see if there's any other spots that could maybe use some brown, and maybe it's this piece right here. Could go like that. So as you can see, like as you get to the more top layers, you might want to be a little bit more thoughtful, I guess might be the word, about, you know, how you're putting your papers down, you know, because you're looking to cover certain things and not cover other things. So I think this one will fit good to cover up that. And then I'm just going to look around and see if there's any other large spots, large holes that need to be covered up. All right, I think we're looking pretty good. I might want to, just going to put some glue down there since it looks like that. And that's the next thing I'm going to do, is I'm just going to go through, and if there's any ends or corners that seem to be, that I didn't glue very well, I'm just going to make sure I get them pushed down real well. Okay, let's move on. All right, for my next layer, I'm going to add a little more color. I'm going to add some of these stamps, these green stamps. I thought they would make a good out with a bang, another summer color. So I kind of love these, and I'm going to use them in a lot of places where I'll be trying to cover up some of those white spots. But before I do that, I am going to go through with my distress ink here, and in any of those white spots that I see, and maybe even just in, you know, around some other places, like on these yellow pieces, I'm just going to add a little bit more color to them, a little brown, a little distress there. So then when I use the stamps, when I go over everything, if I do miss something, there will be, you know, some color already down there. And I kind of like that this is adding a brown to it. So this is another kind of summer into fall look, I think. So when I get to making my fall journal, these will fit right in, I think. Okay, so I think I got all of the white spots. And once again, like I said, I'm just going to try to add some other brown around here. Okay, you can see I've added some distress around, and I love the way distress ink looks on these brown pieces, because I really think it makes things, you know, look a little bit older. So next step is we're going to add some of these stamps onto my Masterboard here, and I'm going to try to put them around so that, you know, there will be at least one on each tag when I cut them apart. So I'm going to first start by doing the same thing we did before, just covering up some spots that need it, and then I'll go back through and add some more into places where I think it'll, you know, show nicely when they're cut apart. And maybe I'll move these over here where I can reach them better. And I love how some of these have their postmarks on them. I think that's really fun. Let's see, where should we put this one? And I am putting them kind of straight up and down. You don't have to. If you like to put things off center and sideways, go to it. Okay, now I think I've gotten a lot of, now I don't want to get them too close together, but I do have a big spot here, but I think I'm just going to put this up kind of high, and maybe that spot will get covered with something else. We'll see. Put this one here. Whoops, that's upside down. Not that that matters. It could be if you wanted it to be. All right, so now I'm just going to put this back on my lines a little bit here so I can take a look and see how I'm doing. So I have 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. Okay, so here's my first 2 tags, and my 6 inch mark, I don't have this right on there, do I? Is, let's see, I'm going to do it on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so yep, about halfway. So this one definitely has 1 on each, but I do think maybe 1 down here would be nice, and maybe even 1 up at the top there. But I'll start with just 1. And I want it kind of off center of like that one. Okay, so I'm going to stop with that right now, and then we're just going to do the next 3 inches. So we'll do 1. Wait, where was that? Oh my goodness, I lose track. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay, here's the next one. And the first one ended here. So I have 1 up here, but nothing down here. So I definitely need at least 1 more, maybe 2. So I'll put this kind of in between those 2 pages. Once you start layering things on top too, putting things over the edges of other things, I think really helps bring things together too. So, you know, I'm not just putting it in the middle of something all the time. I'm actually overlaying edges so that it kind of pulls things together. Okay, and so now I'll do my next 3. 1, 2, 3. And that one was here. So I have 2 here, but none up here. So we'll get 1 up there, up on the top part. Let's see, that one ended, I think, right here. So we could put this one, let's put it right there. And maybe 1 down here too. So you can tell I'm very exact. Not at all. Okay, what do we say? Actually, that's a nice little hole I could cover. So we'll put that there. Okay, and then my last 3, I need something in the middle there for sure. And then possibly 1 back over here. I don't know why this spot keeps drawing my eye. And I want to put something on it. So you know what? I'm gonna put something on it. Okay. Oop. It's a a lot of glue there. I need to change my page again. Look at that, I got all over my finger. Okay, so now, oh, I love it. It's really coming together for me here. Okay, all right, one more layer, and I decided what I want to do for my one more layer before we start splattering this thing is I wanted to add some polka dots. So I really like the way that this is looking, the patterns and things like that, but I thought it would be fun to just add a little bit more visually before we go on to something else. So I love mixing vintage and new, and this kind of is what this is, but I love that this is also brown. So, you know, it's once again tying things together, and I'm just going to be using some little pieces here and there. Ooh, if I can tear them correctly. Yikes, that was not what I wanted at all. All right, and I'm adding additional glue to these because washi tape, as you may know, doesn't always hold the way you want it to. And now this one, the tape I am going to be putting, I think, a little bit more random throughout, meaning not straight up and down or anything like that. So I'm just going to be looking for places where there might not be too much going on that, you know, could use a little interest. And that's what I'm going to do here. All right. And as I'm thinking through, you know, I kind of want to be thinking about my quadrants again. And they've all gotten covered up, so I sure can't tell unless I use that ruler and kind of go through that again. But I don't necessarily need to hold everything up like that. I'm just going to see if this looks good, and hopefully that'll mean that we have something kind of in every space when they get cut apart. See, doesn't that, and actually it's probably not even the circles that do it here, it's probably the black that kind of helps this. So it was sort of just a background, and now I have something that's kind of popping on it, and I love that too. So to do is I'm going to take my scissors here, and you could use like a craft knife if you wanted to as well, and I'm going to cut off the edges so that we have things back down to a 12 by 12 square. All right, it is time to start some splattering. So I really love this Masterboard, but the splatters are just going to add even more to how everything looks. So I'm really excited to get going with this. So to get started, what I've done is I filled a couple of little cups with just a little bit of water, because the paint by itself probably isn't going to be thick enough to give me good splatters. So I have 3 things, and I have three little cups, and I have 3 colors of paint. So I didn't want to get too close to this because I want that to sort of stand on its own. So I have this, it's called Tuscan Red, but it's like a deep red. I thought that would be fun. And then a brighter yellow. So this one is Sunny Day. And then this one is Cinnamon Apple. So it's kind of a orangey color. And this one's old. I don't know how it's going to work, but why don't we start with, let me start with Sunny Day. Let's start with Sunny Day. So all I'm going to do, let me move this out of the way for just a second so you can see. I'm taking one of my cups with water, and I'm just going to add, after I pull off all of the, just a little squirt, and that might have even been too much, but let's see, I'm going to get an old paintbrush. It's not that old. And I'm going to use that as my stirrer here. So I think actually I might even have too much water in here. So I don't want it to be too thin that it's, you know, going to be real translucent. But I think this one I may have had, I'm going to probably dump some of the water out of the other ones. So you really just need a little tiny bit of water you know, to get the paint moving. So I'm probably gonna be wasting a little bit of this paint, unfortunately, but I do want it to be thicker. All right, so let's see how this does. And I'm gonna use 2 different techniques for splattering. I'm going to use, let me find a place to put this. Actually, I put that in my paint pen there. Okay, we're gonna make a mess. So I have I have a little apron on so I don't get too messy. I'm gonna use an old toothbrush and my palette knife as well. So I'm gonna start with my palette knife, I think. And I'm just gonna try to get some of the paint on there, and that's why I want it to be a little thick. So this stays on, which is okay. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of able to drip off of there. And that's all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some of this paint on here, and then I'm gonna kind of shake it onto my cover here. So I have just some kind of controlled splatters. And I'm not doing too many, but once again, I want to be sure I have something in each one of my quadrants, even though it's more like whatever 6 times that is. All right, and I think that's good. I think I'm gonna let this dry, or I may use my my dry gun to get it dry so we can move on to the next color. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, and it may push the paint around and kind of smear it a little bit, not smear it, but just kind of spray it a little bit, but I'm good with that. Okay, I think I have everything dry, and even if it's not totally dry, which I just put my finger in something, it's not totally dry. That's okay. Maybe we'll get it on the next round. Okay, so what I did was I poured out a bunch of the water that's in here. So now, like, I have maybe a teaspoon of water in there, a real small amount, because I want it to be a little bit thicker for this. So I'm going to try this Tuscan Red, and I noticed on some of these other ones that it was kind of clumpy, I guess, but I think that might be because the paint was old. I'm hoping it was because the paint was old. All right, so I'm going to grab this again, and actually maybe I will stir it with a brush. Let me do that instead, and maybe that will, so it won't be so lumpy when I splatter. Okay, so this is much thicker than the other one, which is good. That's what I wanted, but I still need it to be, you know, a little bit wet to do some good splatters. All right, so you can try to splatter with a paintbrush. I am really not very good at it, but I'll show you what I mean. So you get your paint to the consistency that you want. You get some on your brush, and then you just kind of tap it over your finger. And this kind of gives you some lighter ones, depending on how much paint is on your brush, of course. I'm going to try to put a little bit more on to see if I can get some bigger ones. And I like that. But we've got just a little bit going here. So what I might do for this is add some of the palette drops too, because I know those are going to give me bigger splatters. And I kind of want these colors to be, you know, really showing here. I'm going to try to kind of move it and splatter at the same time to get some, maybe some movement in those dots. And you can see you want to have some protective clothing on here if you're going to kind of be winging this paint around. But I love that. So now I have some bigger splotches, which is good. Ooh, I like it, I like it, I like it. And that was a little bit thicker. So now when this dries, it won't be so transparent. So you can see some of the other ones, the yellow, when they dried, they were kind of, you know, almost going away because there was too much water in there. So these hopefully will dry a little bit more, not transparent. What's the opposite of transparent? Opaque, that's the word I'm thinking of. And I'm just trying to grab a little wet wipe here for my little mishap. All right, so once again, we're gonna let this dry and then we'll come back and we will, I think I'm gonna do some of this orange too. I think that'll be fun. Okay, if I was a patient person, which I'm not, I would wait for this to dry or I would dry it with my air gun. I can't, I'm not even patient enough to wait for it to dry with the air gun. So I'm gonna do this one just because I wanna see what happens. And I think this time I'm gonna try to use my toothbrush. So I think it's going to give me another kind of completely different look. Okay, and this one, so I had about a teaspoon once again in here, and looking at that, oh, I'm not sure I like that. I don't know. It looks more pink than orange. I wonder if that one is so old. Ooh, doesn't it look pink? I think this one's too old. All right, let me go see if I can find a different orange that we can use. Okay, I decided to go with Concord Grape instead. So I figured there's enough orange in here with this, the paper that I have in there. So I thought it might be fun to kind of try to get a little bit of contrast in there somewhere. So let's try this. Now, once again, I have about a teaspoon in here. Hopefully this paint will work. I just opened it, so hopefully. Yeah, you definitely need to get some of the lumps out of here. All right. I think that's pretty good. Now for this one, I'm gonna start with the toothbrush. Now, it's been a while since I've splattered with a toothbrush, but we're gonna give it a go. So now I am gonna be using my hands, and I'm trying to remember which way is better, which way it goes when you, I think it goes like the opposite way that you're using the toothbrush. Does that make sense? I don't know what I'm saying. So I'm going to pull down on the bristles and it'll probably shoot forward. So I'm going to start down here. Yes. And you can see how it kind of makes a great, ooh, and it's dripping off my finger. So be ready for that. But I kind of like having some of those big dots in there too. All right, am I missing any place? I think I'm gonna have to turn it a little bit. So I knock everything over just to get some of these areas maybe that don't have anything. And you certainly don't have to cover everything, but I feel like it needs something. And look, let's just splatter with our finger. Oh yeah. All right, this is my favorite way. Just splatter with your finger. That really gives it some motion there. Okay, I think that's good. Now, I do have to be a patient person and let this dry. So I'm gonna let this dry and I'll be back and we'll get this thing finished up. All right, it has been overnight. I decided to try to be patient and just let the paint dry on its own, which it has. And you can see all those beautiful splatters in there. I love how the little black dots kind of pop out at you. And I love having some of the larger splatters along with some of the smaller splatters. So I love how this turned out. Now, what we're gonna do is we're going to cut this up and then we're going to do a little bit of decoration. And just so you know, I've grabbed some decorations. So I grabbed a bunch of these little photos. This is from my photo booth kit, which I will link down below. But I thought they were kind of reminiscent of like school photos. So since, you know, what you do after the summer is go back to school a lot of times, I thought this would be a fun little theme to have. And then zinnias in around where I am are blooming beautifully in August. And so I thought I would grab some zinnias of different colors that kind of match some of my splatters to have as decoration as well. And then I also grabbed some stamping that I had done on some coffee dyed paper. So these are just some stamps of labels and tickets and different things like that that I thought I might use as part of my decoration. And then I also grabbed some stickers that are some labels, and also the colors of these kind of match, you know, what I have going on here. So that's kind of what I'm going to start with. I may grab some other things too, but we'll start here. So the first thing I want to do is cut apart my Masterboard. Now, if you remember, you know, we were going to cut it in half to have 6 inches, 6 inches, and then 3-inch tags. And of course, you can even decide at this point if you wanted to change it. So, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. So I'm going to start by, I think I'm going to start by cutting it in half, so it'll make it a little bit easier to cut down the tags. So this is my 6-inch mark here. And so I have my 2 now. And then I'm going to do these one at a time just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to do each one of these at the 3-inch mark. And so I'll have these beautiful tags, and I already can tell I love them, but you can see how this creates a cohesiveness without them being exactly the same. And I think that's what I love most about Masterboards is, you know, that it creates that. So let's see, I'm going to put this in here, and actually I think I'm going to turn this one upside down. I think that last bit, I'm not sure if it actually, this one doesn't look like it's quite 3 inches on the end. I'm not sure. And I may not even do all of them as tags. I may save some for, like, you know, pockets or something like that. So actually I could cut this way for it to be maybe a pocket in a journal. Maybe that's what I'll do. So this is a 6 by 6 inch square that we have here. So instead of cutting this one vertically, I'm going to cut this one horizontally. So I have something I could use as pockets, which it's still right side up. So these I've cut like this, and I have 2 that I could use as pockets, or even note cards or something like that. So you can see how versatile having a Masterboard is, and we're ready to start decorating. Now for the tags, I'm going to pick the ones that maybe I like the best. So let me just kind of put them all out here. And yeah, this one, I don't know what happened there, but this one looks a little smaller. I don't know why, but that's okay. All right, so let's start with let's just do 4. So I love this one with the 378, and look at that. Isn't that funny? My music page was 379. So I have those right together. That's fun. And then let's see, I think I definitely like this one. I'm going to make a little pile here as I look through them. I kind of like this one and this one and this one. All right, so we're going to start with those 4, and we'll put this stuff aside. If I, you know, want to do those later, I certainly can. So I think I have 4 there. And then the first thing I'm probably going to do, I'm going to grab, I just have like a little tag here to do the corners. So if you have like a tag punch, you could obviously do that, but I do not have one of those. So I'm just going to cut my tag corners like this and make sure that I have it right side up, because that would be my luck. All right, and I'm going to do this on this one. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and cut the rest of these. All right, I've done a little playing around just to see what I think would go nicely on these. So I'm just going to kind of put these aside for a minute, and we'll start on 1. And obviously, you know, I've had some time to just kind of play around with this, but as you're working on something like this, just, you know, try to take some pieces and put them together to see if they, you know, end up being what you like. So I'm going to try to just set these to be in a configuration where I like them. I'm gonna see, maybe have a label here too at the end, and you know, even just something as simple like that, I love the way it looks. So, you know, I have this kind of the path of these kind of go in a diagonal direction, and I think that's pleasing to the eye. I'm trying to make sure I leave enough room up at the top for tassels or, you know, some sort of tag topper up there, but I think this is what I want to do with this one. So once I kind of have that configuration down, I'm going to use my, I'll probably use 2 different kinds of glue here for everything that's not a sticker. So for my photo, because it's bigger, I'll use my Fabri-Tac or 3-in-1 glue. I don't know, there's got a million names. This one's the 3-in-1. And then for some of the other ones, let's see here, where do I want that? Maybe about right there. And if you need to, you know, continue kind of playing with things, just go ahead and do that. And I like how the flowers just covering up her just a little bit there. And then for the flowers, because I fussy cut them, it's easier to use something like this glitter glue to get into the little areas and make sure, you know, your entire piece is glued down, because once again, we don't want those ends coming up or anything like that. So I'm just going to kind of use this glue to get to the little spots and try not to get my hands all gluey, which I think I've already done a little bit there. So I'm just going around and making sure there's some glue along all these little edges and the tips as best I can. And then I'm going to put this down just so it reaches the edge. And sometimes, you know, you might want to go off the edge too. So just keep that in mind as, you know, something to do. And then I'm sure I will have a hard time getting this label off while I have the camera on, because that's usually the way it goes for me. Oop, oop, do I get it? Did I get it? Nope. Oh, there we go. Unbelievable. Okay. And then I'm just going to put this right at the bottom. And there's our first tag. And I'm just going to do the same thing with these other ones. I'm just going to pull one out. I'm going to do a little bit of moving things around to see what I like where, and then I will glue things down. All right, so I did do a couple of extra things to kind of finish these tags off. So I did them off screen just because they are things I normally do to almost all of my tags. So we had finished doing the decorations, but I did go and add some papers to the background to, of course, cover up this paper that we had on our Masterboard that we don't, doesn't match certainly, and I don't really care for either. And I wanted to make these a spot where you could, journal something in. And as you can also see, I did do some zigzag stitching around the edges. I like to do that when I cover the back of something to really keep the edges from coming apart and, kind of showing what's underneath there. So I did that. I put the papers on the back, I sewed around, and then I did also add some tag toppers. So you can see here, I used a hole punch and threaded some fabric through there, and then I sewed some tabs, just folded over onto some of them as well, using some scrap fabrics that I had that I thought sort of matched or contrasted my tags as well. So there it is, my Out with a Bang collaboration, the last days of summer. I hope you enjoyed this video, friends, and I hope that you'll take a look at some of the other artists that are participating this month in the last days of summer collaboration. I will link below somewhere where you can see the full schedule of that. Thanks so much for watching, friends. I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.